From the post-millennial, Tim Walz invited CCP officials into his Nebraska classroom when he was a teacher. Wow, this just keeps getting worse for the guy, huh? I really just don't like this guy.
Look at his face.
I'm not a fan. There's something, it's just, this guy.
Sponsored
So
by
that's the story. The incident occurred in February of 96 when a group of 3 educators from Southeast China came to Waltz's social studies class at Alliance High School to reportedly study the education system. According to a rediscovered Alliance Time Herald story, the Daily Caller News Foundation obtained a study of Chinese government data that showed the delegation included CCP officials who at the time were employed by an institute serving a Chinese espionage agency. The matter has sparked further concern surrounding Governor Walz, the Democratic vice presidential nominee, and his alleged ties to the CCP. Walz and his wife Gwen were sponsors of a student trip to China when the educators stopped by his school. I think it's pretty obvious that this dude has got a, we got to keep it family friendly. So he's got an adoration for the Chinese Communist Party. I was going to use a different word, but we'll just call it an adoration. My word rhymes with loner.
I think you can say that online.
It's just because there's kids.
Yeah, right.
Family
the reference too, because it's a character from Growing Pains.
Oh, you get a lot of kids that watch this?
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies.
Well, it's not that kids watch it. It's that people watch in their living rooms with their TV on and their kids are, and they're screaming in the chat, please stop swearing.
Hey, my apologies, guys. My apologies. J6 are here. I'm sorry.
It's not particularly a surprise that he has, an affinity for the CCP, considering what we know about the...
He's a communist?
Well, he thinks that communism is just being neighborly, which is about as ridiculous as of a take on communism as you can possibly have. But it's not a surprise that he would do something like that, considering the situation with him being in the Tiananmen Square. And he said that he'd gone to the CCP multiple times, right?
To the CCP or to China?
Well, to China, yeah.
Yeah, to China. Yeah, at first he claimed it was 30, and then he says it was 15 or something.
Yeah, so...
Do you think there's a correlation between low testosterone and being a communist?
Yes.
But what about if you're a communist who wants to control the communist dictatorship?
High T.
That's high T then, right?
Yeah.
That's
you got good nutrition if you want to control the Communist Party.
You're you want to be the dictator, you have aspirations. That's high T right there.
Maybe you were low T selected. Tough to tell. I don't know how that party works. Like, picked
I'm
by
saying
the party
someone who has
like...
the ambition to take over a country and become a dictator. It seems like a high T.
Is that how it works in China? And I don't know if you know the answer to this. Does someone seize control and now they are or are they selected by a secret shadow government?
It's like the Goblin King. In order to become the chairman, you have to take out the existing chairman.
You got to take Trenbolone.
I am absolutely kidding. It's not Goblin King. It's like a single party voter, and then the top members of the party will vote, and then you've got allies. And I hear it's really mob-like and very dirty, that it may actually be more Goblin King than we realize,
Who knows who? It's like a Goblin King.
Well, it's like
mind.
If you're a powerful guy and you've got a bunch of buddies and you say, I'm going to be the chair, you put me in and I'll make it worth your while. Otherwise, it'll be bad for you.
So it's kind of like...
allies?
And then do they have a secret... like a CIA or an MI6?
Of course.
Yeah.
What do you know? Does it have a name?
They don't know the name. They call it Chinese intelligence.
Also, I don't think that it's all that particularly secret. Everyone's really afraid of stepping out of line because you just get picked up by the normal police. If you the laws are there's so many laws.
Have you seen the video of the guy strapped to the chair and the cops are like, "Why did you post online that the cops are bad?" And he's like, I was drunk. I'm so sorry. I won't do it again. And they were like, "You were drunk. Does that mean you think the cops are good?" And he's like, "Yo, yeah, your cops are really good." And he's got shackles on a metal chair and he's naked.
Whoa.
Yeah, dude.
It's rough, man. It's real rough. Every business has every business of, I'm not sure what size, but if you're a decent sized business, you have a representative from the Communist Party in the building, kind of like it used to be with the...
Kind of like how we have DEI here.
Yeah.
Man.
That is what they're trying to do.
It's an example of do you work with your enemies to accomplish a greater, or do you work with, and I'm not saying that the CCP is evil. I don't know them all individually. As a unit, I don't like the idea of communism at all as a unit. I don't think it works properly. Top-down, controlled, state-run economy does not function at the local levels properly. You need a more agile economy to function and thrive. That's what the evidence shows. But that you will work with evil, good can work with evil to accomplish a greater goal, which is a unified survivability for the species, and that whether you want to think of one, because I don't want to destroy the system, whatever the system is. I want to augment and fix and make it better. And is it worth working with? I don't. Maybe that's Walz's state of mind. I don't know a lot about. I heard
That's
him
not his state of mind. His state of mind is he's a loyal servant to the CCP.
Is that
You don't fly there 15, 30 or 15, pick your number, and then invite the CCP to come to your school. This dude romanticizes about what's going on in China. He lied about being there. He lied about being in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square protests, which he was not. And then he get calls out, and all the time he's lying about everything. This dude is just he's smarmy, dude.
I saw the interview where they were like, so you said you think socialism is a good thing. This is kind of what you were referencing, Phil, but I think they said socialism, not communism. They were like,
they did.
And they were like, the definition of socialism is that the private property, there is no private property. All property is owned by the state. So you support that? Is something like
Socialism doesn't say the state, although it is true, just to clarify. They say it's publicly owned.
And then
Which
he's
basically
like,
means the state.
he was like, no, I mean, I just mean it's like being neighborly was the quote. There's a really crazy interview where that interaction happens.
He's lying. Look at the policies he's passed in his state. The dude is DEI. So DEI is the attempt in the United States to create an American Communist Party. That's why they want, there's chief diversity officers. That is installing the CCP into your business. That's what DEI is. And I don't think this necessarily comes from China. I think it's Democrats largely who have romanticized and dream of having a government like the CCP does. Where who was it first you have Trudeau, who said what was it? He was a big fan of Xi Jinping or something like that. Mm-hmm. You had these Democrats a long time ago say that they envy how China can build a highway overnight and the United States can't do it. Well, it's because we have human rights here. You can't go to someone's house and just smash it to bits and then build your highway over it. But in China, they can. They don't care.
Yeah, they can also force slaves to go build the highway. I mean,
they'll just be like, your house is gone and it's going to be a highway.
I imagine. I said that out of hand. I think of these, some Theo Fletcher sometimes really comes down on me on Twitter. Shout out to Theo Fletcher, who sometimes I can't take it. But I've said some things about China that aren't correct, and sometimes I feel bad about that. And I don't know about them making slaves build highways, but I think that they don't. I think that they don't have workers' rights the same way that we do. I mean, I guess off the top of my head, I should really research that before I start making those statements. I've just heard stuff about the way that the Uyghurs have been treated in like camps, and that they're being.
I mean, whether it be the Uyghurs, the Tibetans, or any number of ethnic minorities, China's really been absolutely harsh on
The
them.
Falun Gong was another group that apparently were persecuted by the government pretty ruthlessly, I've heard.
I mean,
And then they formed the Epic Times, I believe, right? And they moved to the United States.
oh, that's who did it. Okay.
Yeah, if you go to New York, Falun Gong people are handing out flyers and stuff. And then it was really funny because China started hiring YouTubers. They offered, I'm pretty sure I got offered this at some point. I got an email where they were like, we'll give you $200 to post this video to your YouTube channel. And then I looked at the video and it was a guy being like, these really weird people, Falun Gong, like, what's this about? And then it was like a mini doc that was like 5 to 10 minutes long from some white dude complaining about this group. And I'm like, I ain't posting that to my channel. What is this? But a lot of people were like, $200, I'll take it. It's just a commercial, right? And I'm like, no way, dude.
I read the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Have you guys ever read this book? It's worth the read. It's like the Chinese Hamlet. It's considered an absolute classic, written by Lo Gongxiao in like the 1400s or 1500s. Or
Like Wushu and Wei?
Yeah.
Three Kingdoms?
Yeah. And they've been Dynasty Warriors games came out of this Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The novel's incredible. I highly recommend reading it. And you learn all about the beauty of the culture and the way, but it really is imperial propaganda. It's like talking about how wonderful the emperor is and how we need to restore the emperor. I want to become the emperor. Who's in control of the country? And it's like centralized control and authority. And it's like kind of gross that I worshiped Liu Bei and thought he was such a phenomenal human. All he wanted to do was restore the power of the empire. And granted, it was 2,000 years ago. What other things did they have going for him other than like a good emperor? They didn't really have the technology to establish a democratic republic in a lot of ways like we have now. And it's always made me love China. Reading this and thinking about going to Chengdu in the West and seeing the mountains and the temples and the history and stuff. But man, communism as an economy is just so stifling. And like the brutality that I've seen and heard about in that country is...
But it goes beyond just an economy. Like it's totalitarian. So it's not just the economic system. It's the way you live your life. And being totalitarianism, it's the thoughts that you have. Totalitarianism doesn't allow for dissent. You can live in, there are authoritarian countries where they don't care so much what you think, just so long as you shut up and do what you're told. Like, that's authoritarian. If it's totalitarian, they're going to be involved with who you can marry. Like the reason China had a one-child policy, because it's totalitarian, because they were dictating how many children you were allowed to have. They dictate whether or not you can have health care. They dictate literally what you think, which is part of the reason why they control speech, because if you can control what people are allowed to say, then you can do, to some extent, control what people think and what people are allowed to think. That was the whole, in 1984, the reason they wanted to go ahead and go with Newspeak is because they wanted to get rid of the ability to think bad thoughts.
You need to invent ideas or discover them, however you want to describe it. But the idea that there was self-governance or that there could be self-governance didn't exist until the founding fathers, largely. I mean, certainly there was, to a degree, democracy, but mostly around the world, kingdoms. It was divine mandate or someone who just inherited control. And the founding fathers, I don't believe it was the first instance of self-governing, but a lot of the ideas that came from this era were developed. And so, I mean, if you look at the rise of communism, especially, right? Communism didn't exist all that long ago. It starts to rise in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Ideas have to be discovered. And so if you can stop people from talking about a certain type of idea, they can't even begin to imagine such a thing exists.
I've heard in North Korea that they don't have a word for love. Is that correct?
That's probably not true.
That was a quote, or I believe it was Yeonmi Park, who dissented and fled the country and said that they don't have a word for it.
They have to have a word for love because you have to love your leader. You have to love Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
So
I read they have a poo tax. You have to actually pay the government in poop. And I'm not even making that up. I'm not even trying to be funny. I read that
Pay
online.
them in poop or for poop?
Like you have to give them a certain amount of poop for fertilizer. I'd like to fact check that. I
I don't
swear-
think that's true because human waste is not good fertilizer.
Yeah, I read it online.
You could probably refine it, though.
Yeah.
You read it online. Now that means it's true.
Can we pull that up, young Jamie?
You can definitely get methane out of it.
Yeah. What do you guys think about modern day hate speech laws being passed in America?
totally against it.
Yeah, it's
Well, it's unconstitutional.
too vague. Like, what is that even? What is a hate speech?
It's been brought before the Supreme Court on more than one occasion, and as long as you're not inciting violence, then the First Amendment protects, speech, even horrible speech.
Aren't they passing laws like in universities that if you're found to be anti-Semitic that you could get kicked out of university, or is that just
That would be the university deciding that you can't say things, and they'll use hate speech as a reason, but that's not federal law saying you can't say things. They'll say, oh, well, you said something hateful, you made other students uncomfortable, et cetera.
Yeah, but if these universities receive public funds and they want to police speech,
Yep.
then they should lose public funds.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
They should have to follow civil law.
Yep.
If they want public money, yeah.
Yeah, these quasi-public-private organizations are really weird. Like the Federal Reserve considers itself one of those too. I don't think you're one or the other. Either you're a public, well, probably say public utility, but I guess you could be publicly funded without being a utility.
Maybe in 13 days we will have a communist administration with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I was thinking as you guys were talking about the communism, about how kind of like totalitarianism and imperialism, it's all can kind of become one weird thing. Like they kind of see like patrolling and controlling thoughts and speech. It doesn't just adhere to like communism. It can be definitely like,
Well, yeah, I mean, there's multiple, there's different ways you can be totalitarian. You can be like there are some Islamist countries that are totalitarian. They're theocracies. You aren't allowed to say things that would insult the prophet, and they would use the force of law to prevent that. They're police of virtue and vice and virtue, and I believe it's in Saudi Arabia, in the kingdom. If you're in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, you can get. You can run into the police of vice and virtue who will, I don't know exactly if they arrest you or if they just kind of slap you around or whatever, they can arrest you. Yeah. So, there are multiple ways to be totalitarian. It's not just communism, but.
Are the police of vice and virtue different than the other regular police in Saudi Arabia?
I believe they are, but I'm not sure. I don't know the in-depth situation about Saudi Arabia, but they actually do have, like, if you break Islamic law, the police of vice and virtue will, wrap you up and you can go to jail for that. So
I think an antidote to it is to keep saying truth, is to keep like using your free speech in a non-adversarial way, just in a very charismatic, loving way. Just keep doing it. Keep being a lighthouse in the dark for people to reorient to, yeah, this is the best. And so I keep making videos, YouTube videos, Twitch videos.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.